So tonight I am going to be making a data cable for my for my iPad to connect to my 817ND. I'm going to build it just pretty much on the same idea as I did for the computer. I have no issue running my computer. I didn't have to have any isolation circuits or anything like that. I don't see why we would need them for the iPad. It's not like it's running off AC current on the house that would create some weird interference or noise on the audio part. So I'm going to just take a network cable like such, cut the end off, and I'm going to find the right two wires that are for the mic, because this network cable will plug into where the mic jack is, and we're going to use Vox to trigger the audio in. And then we're going to use a standard 1/8" plug for the headphone jack off the radio to the iPad. I bought a little splitter here for $4 off eBay. And you'll notice it has 4 sections instead of 3. This splits for your stereo headphone and for your mic. And so this will plug into the iPad, and then one will plug into an 1/8" jack that I'm putting on in the network cable, and the other will plug into just an 1/8" jack going to an 1/8" jack for the Yaesu. I guess they're 1/8", 3mm, whatever they're called. But anyway, that should be pretty simple. I'm going to build that now. Alright, so I found a little chart here showing what the pinouts are for the RJ45 mic jack on the 817ND. And it's the 2 middle right here. Mic and ground for mic are the 2 pins. So I need to find those 2 pins, and that's what I need to connect my phone jack to. Okay, so something's weird with this cable. It was clearly handmade. It wasn't one I made. I don't know where I got it, but it wasn't one I made. It's not going by the normal wiring. For some reason, the 2 center pins, instead of being blue and blue stripe, is and you can see them twisted here. It's actually the green with blue stripe. I'm not sure why that's the case, but it's this one right here. Green with blue stripe, and these were already wound like this. Green with blue stripe. It's a little odd. So it's those 2 wires are the mic, ground, and mic on this. That is not the normal case. Usually it's blue and blue stripe. So I'm not sure what's up with that. So anyway, these are the 2 wires I'm going to attempt to wire to this. I had this left over from my failed attempt on my first data cable I made, and I didn't want to throw away the end. And so I'll just splice this back and connect the solder right to here, and then just use some heat shrink. Get rid of all this garbage on here. So that's the plan. Well, initially, what I did is I just connected the 2 wires. Again, remember, my 2 wires are wrong. Usually you're going to be connecting the blue and the blue stripe. This just happens to be the 2 wires that mine are using. So I connected them to the positive and the negative off the headphone jack, and then I ran that into the splitter here, and so I have my headphone jack. The next thing I do is go over to the radio, and you're going to go to your Vox settings. Now I'm probably going to have to play with this a little bit, but see, I've got Vox. I turned Vox on, and so I've set Vox on. Now, just to kind of see where things are, I'm going to go back over to the power setting, and I'm going to set to ALC so I can see how we are on levels. I did just run it, with those settings, and we were heard. So there you go. Looks like somebody picked me up in New Zealand. So with my whisper. So New Zealand, here and here. So let's do it again. I'm going to go back to settings, and I've got it set up for my frequency of, let's turn it the right frequency, to 14.095.6, and got my call in, and it's coming up on the time here. When it hits the 30, it's going to transmit. So we'll give it a shot. Now I can't, okay, it starts playing. The Vox kicked in. All right, Vox kicked off. So you want to make sure, of course, you put Do Not Disturb on. Make sure you have Do Not Disturb on. And then you want to make sure your volume is probably around 2 or 3 notches. Try 2 to kick it up. And that should be all you need to make it trip the Vox. Let's go back to the map here. Let's do an update. So we got some more sightings. This was the original one in New Zealand. And we've got, it looks like this guy sighted me again in San Francisco. And we got 2 more over here. Right now I am on 20 meter, and it is 11:30 in the evening, so not ideal times to be doing 20 meter. But yeah, there you go. And like I said, I'm gonna have to probably do some, he got me there at minus 11 dB. Wonder what New Zealand got me at. Minus 25 dB, so it was pretty quiet. San Francisco got me at, wow, San Francisco got me at 0 dB. They heard me loud and clear. Arizona, minus 20, minus 11, minus 24. So there you go. So now, all I need to do is solder that up nicely, get rid of the extra spare wires I don't need, and put some heat shrink on it. And then buy me an 1/8 inch to 1/8 inch jack for the headphone, and I'm good to go. And then that's my data cable. So there you go. That's how you make a data cable for a mobile device. Pretty simple. And for the use using just an Ethernet port, I'm sure it'll require some tweaking, but it's working just as well as it did on my computer. And so yeah, pretty handy. So I'm gonna solder this all up, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. All right, I heat shrinked it. I'm a little concerned that it's gonna be a very strong, so I may wrap it with some electrical tape also, just to add some extra strength here, because if this is getting pulled on, I don't want it to put too much pressure on things, just to play it safe. I think I could heat this up just a little more, shrink it a little better. So yeah, I'm gonna heat that up a little more. Data out from the iPad to the radio. So there we go. First cable made. The next cable will just be something you can just buy from Walmart, which will just be 2 of these. A cable that has 2 of these on the end. So that should be it to do it. You have to get all the settings right. So I'll show you that real quick. You want to make sure that when you're setting the box, make it as sensitive as possible. So in other words, the default is 500 milliseconds. We want to set it to 100 milliseconds for it to respond. Also, the gain is set at 44 out of the box, which means that it's backwards. The lower the number, the louder you have to talk. The higher the number, the less you have to talk. So if you set the gain at 100, that'll make it the most sensitive, which is fine because you have this connected to your device. So the only time it'll have any sound is if you're transmitting. So it's okay to set it that sensitive. But you need to do that because to get the ALC to where it's manageable, where you have it loud enough that it's about the right volume, so that when it gets to the quiet parts, it doesn't kick out. because there's still signal, but it might be a lower frequency or a higher frequency, and the volume, the ALC will change. But also it's quieter or louder depending on the frequency that's playing, and so that can cause the Vox to kick out if it's not sensitive enough. But let's go into the settings, and we're at menu 51, and I got my Vox gain at 100, and then if we go to 50, I got my Vox delay at 100 milliseconds. That is the most responsive you can make it. So let's go ahead and hop out of here. And right now I'm just running at 1 watt. I didn't want to run too hot right now because, you really shouldn't, especially with Whisper, because it runs for 2 minutes straight open, and so you don't want to burn up anything. So right now my volume, what I found that works, was right there. That's what it took to kick it in, but I can show you a scenario here. I'll enable transmit. So notice I also transmit probability with this particular iWhisper for the iPad. That's how often it will transmit, even if you have it enabled. So I was sitting here wondering why it wasn't transmitting, and it was because I had that set to 20%. So that means out of every turn it goes to transmit, it's going to only do it 20% of the time. So if you're trying to test something, it's best just to put it always and then hit enable. But you wouldn't want to just let this run with transmit probability always and walk away from it. You'd burn up your radio. So it's about halfway right now, and so we'll watch. I'll put enable, and let's just watch what this will do to kick in. We'll give it a second here. Okay, well, now notice the ALC is still a little low. I'm going to click the volume up once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Looks like 4 kicked it in. So we'll leave it at 4 for now. Keep in mind you don't want it to be too low, or if you go to your power setting, for example here, now this is about where it would be getting full 1 watt out of that. If your LLC is too low, you won't be transmitting a full watt of power, and if you're only running 1 watt, you're gonna wanna, So keep in mind also the manual said a few. Well, 1 is 1, a couple is 2, so a few would normally be right around here. So let's go to the map, let's go to update. Now we can see our current time. This is 6:24. Yeah, that started at 6:24. That was just now. And we had 2 locations, 2,500 kilometers and 2,300 kilometers. So that's what we got, 2 locations on that run. I found a cable to connect the headphone jack from the 817 to my iPad, but after playing with that, I really didn't like it because I kind of like being able to hear what's actually on the band without having to unplug the cable and tune in to find the signals. So what I ended up using was the data cable that I made for my computer, but I just don't use the data into the radio. I just use the data out jack that's on that cable. I have to still use the RJ45 cable that goes to the microphone jack so that we can use Vox to communicate.